Hi, I'm Kathy King, registered dietitian and founder of Helm Publishing, a continuing education company that creates nutrition-related courses for dietitians and health professionals to improve the health of our public. One of our fastest growing paradigms in the United States today in the dietetic profession is intuitive eating, and I'm joined today by one of its creators, Elyse Resch. Welcome, Elyse.
Thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yes. Let me take a minute to read from her extensive bio. Elyse is a registered dietitian and certified eating disorder specialist and a fellow of the International Association of Eating Disorder Specialists, a fellow of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. She is co-author of Intuitive Eating, now in its 4th edition, plus many workbooks, chapters, journal articles, and blog posts. She is a social justice advocate, and she supervises and trains health professionals in intuitive eating skills. Elyse does regular speaking engagements and extensive media interviews with such places as the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, ABC, NBC, CNN, and many other media outlets. Elyse is nationally known for her work in helping patients break free from the diet culture through the intuitive eating process. Elyse, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, you're very welcome.
Let me start by asking, your bio mentions your philosophy on reconnecting with one's internal wisdom. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Oh, sure. So the majority of babies are born with all the wisdom that they need to have for eating. If you've ever been around a baby, you know that when that baby is hungry, it cries and gets fed. And when it's had enough milk, it turns its little head. And you can't put more milk in that child. And when they start eating, babies start eating solid foods around 6 months old. You introduce different foods, and some of them they go yum, 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 and others they just don't like at all. So it's this instinctual part of the brain that gives us the signal that says, I'm hungry, I'm full, this tastes good, this doesn't taste good, my body feels this way when I eat these particular foods, or too much food or too little food. So we're born with that wisdom. But what happens? Diet culture, this capitalistic $70 billion a year business that is just based on making people feel bad about themselves if they don't fit into a certain culturally thin ideal, puts out messages that we should really ignore our inner wisdom and follow one plan or another plan that is externalized. It's not within. So I want to help people get back to that place where they can trust their bodies, to have that freedom that comes with, trusting that inner wisdom. So
okay, good explanation. I think I remember once being in that place. It does, even with all of the background that we have in nutrition, it is tough. It is tough. You get so many messages coming in that argue with your natural wisdom. Right. Who are the typical patients that you see with intuitive eating?
Well, it's interesting. I have 2 types of patients. I am a certified eating disorder specialist and supervisor. So I have many clients who are on their journey of recovering, healing from an eating disorder. So some of them are just starting on the journey, and others have been in residential treatments. They've come out of other treatments and come to me outpatient. That's one group of people that I work with, people who have really diagnosable eating disorders and are hoping to heal. The other group, and I have to say they're the easier and more fun group, are the people who are, the reason I say more fun, because they haven't had so much of the trauma that comes with having an eating disorder. But they've had trauma that comes with diet culture, and they are at a place where, for the most part, they're saying, I'm never going on another diet. I can't take it. I hate it, but I have no idea how to eat. I don't know what to do if I'm not going to go on a diet. And so I am helping them reconnect with that internal wisdom, helping them find this wonderful place where they're enjoying their food, they're satisfied, and they're not tied into, the terrible side effects of dieting.
Let me ask, are these people on virtual appointments, or are they coming into your office?
So for 40 years, almost 40 years, I was seeing people in the office, and then the pandemic hit, and overnight I was starting to see people virtually from home. And I found that I actually liked working at home. And this is something interesting that maybe some people haven't realized. I think it's actually more intimate to be on the computer face to face with someone in a session, where in the office you're a number of feet away. I can see facial expressions better. I can see body language better. People are feeling really connected. So it's now pretty much virtual. I did see one client at my home in this little shed I built in the backyard, but typically it's going to be virtual.
Let me ask then, I know that a lot of dietitians ask, how do you reconcile intuitive eating with medical nutrition therapy? And what if a patient has a medical issue like celiac disease, diabetes, heart disease, and they should be watching out what they're eating? How do you get them then to go back to natural wisdom and also be watching what they're learning for diabetes eating?
It's a very important question, and I want to start with something called radical acceptance, which actually comes out of Zen Buddhism. I'm not Buddhist, but it's a very important concept of when something is not changeable, when we make peace with it, when we, in every cell of our bodies, it really reduces suffering. So let's take the person with celiac disease. That person really cannot eat gluten. It's the one, true illness that gluten is very dangerous for that person. Well, we start with the feelings that come with the sense of having an illness that is going to cause some level of selection in their eating, maybe a level of deprivation. And with celiac in today's world, there's so many gluten-free products that people are not feeling the feelings they had 40 years ago when I treated people, and there was almost nothing around. You had to order a gluten-free bread from across the country, and it was dry and awful. So fortunately for that particular illness, people have to come to terms with the fact that their main purpose is to feel good and to listen to their bodies, and they don't feel good if they're eating gluten. These other things that you're mentioning, I like to tell people what they can bring in rather than depriving themselves.
Okay.
So this is one piece of it. So what kinds of foods can you bring into your life if you have high cholesterol? Well, do you like oatmeal? Do you like beans? I don't want to put people in a position of deprivation. What I do want them to do is listen to their bodies. That's what I was saying earlier about listening to the wisdom of the body. And sometimes with certain foods, for some people, they just don't feel well, and or they know that it's really the gluten that's the thing that they can't have. For some of these other foods, you really don't have to deprive yourself of anything, any of these other conditions. You don't have to deprive yourself. You just want to listen to how your body feels. So let's say someone has diabetes, and if they're eating in a way that they're listening to their body, they feel pretty good. But if somehow they're out of balance and not listening, then they're not feeling as well. So it's listen to what your body's telling you. But the bottom line is sometimes there are things we're just going to have to change, and being able to feel the feelings of sadness that we have to deal with it, but also gratitude that there's still so many ways that eating can be pleasurable and wonderful. So it's not all or nothing. It's not if you have a medical condition, suddenly, everything changes. It's not like that.
Okay. I would have to say, living in Texas and having family in Oklahoma, there are pockets where you can't get a lot of the different gluten-free foods and stuff like that. And in restaurants, you're down to grilled chicken on a salad or something along that line.
Thank you for informing me, because it is actually a privilege being in California and having everything available. So that's an important point. And I do help people deal with the feelings of sadness that maybe there are some things that they can't have.
That's right. That's right. I know that it varies when you see clients, but typically, how long do you work with someone, and how often do you see them, like on a counseling basis? Sure. I'm sure people are wondering, how long do you see them?
Well, there was once a client I had many years ago who had been on one diet for 1 week, and we had one session, and she was bought into intuitive eating and, never again. Some of it depends on how long someone has been having restrictive thoughts, how long someone has been dieting. how open they are to take in new information. And so it's variable, as you said. And typically when I start with someone new, I do like to see them once a week for a while, but I am so open-minded. Some people just can't afford it, or their lives are such that they don't have the time. And so I will work with people. Sometimes I'll see them every other week or every third week, but optimally once a week. And then in terms of how long it takes, again, it's really how receptive the person is and how much work they need to do. Sometimes it's pretty quick and sometimes it takes longer. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but
no, I can. And when people used to ask me that when I was seeing individual clients, I didn't charge very much for consults. And I saw people for years. Absolutely. I was part of their support network, and they would call me for an appointment to say, I need to keep on seeing you right now. I'm feeling like I'm relapsing and I need to see you again.
Well, you're making a good point also. I think when there's a safe and trusting connection, sometimes people have healed from whatever their disordered eating or eating disorders, were, but they kind of like to talk to me as a coach, help them through things. I have one client I met when she was 15 and she had pretty serious anorexia, and she was in treatment, obviously, with a therapist. And she's now 37, has 3 kids, and is training to be a therapist. And we still talk because I think I'm like a wise person who can help her out of some things. So it's not about her eating anymore. It's about other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a friendship as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the common myths that either professionals or patients have about intuitive eating?
So one of the myths that is pervasive that troubles me very much, and I've even seen it written in books inaccurately, is that intuitive eating only allows you to eat when you're at a certain level of hunger. And if you don't have any, that level of hunger, you're not allowed to eat. And that is the opposite of intuitive eating. Yes, we want to look at hunger. We want to look at fullness as a way of gauging how satisfying our meal is. Whether if we start eating at a place where we have no appetite, it doesn't taste very good. If we have, primal hunger, which is like a place where the brain is sensing that, you have no energy coming to it and you just want to eat everything in sight, that's not very satisfying. So hunger and fullness do come into it, but it is not the hunger fullness diet. That's very important to know. Okay. There are times we're going to eat out of just pure pleasure. Sometimes we're going to need food for comfort. That's fine too. So I want to, disabuse people of the belief that it's only about eating when you're hungry, and stopping absolutely at a certain level of fullness. The other very important myth to look at is intuitive eating is not about weight loss. That is not the goal of intuitive eating. So it is about healing one's relationship with food, healing one's relationship with their body, coming to this place of, body neutrality, hopefully at some point, body acceptance, body respect, and understanding it's far more important to be kind to our bodies and to enjoy our food than to be focusing on weight loss. And I do want to say that there's no judgment about people who want to lose weight. I mean, we live in this culture, they're bombarded with those messages. And there are some people who think that intuitive eating, this is another myth, that intuitive eating counselors have judgment about people who want to lose weight. No, there's no judgment. It's just more of an understanding that any process of focusing on weight loss is going to be a failure, and that the focus really needs to be on listening to your body and having satisfying meals. So I don't want anybody to feel bad if that's what they want. It's just that I'm not going to lead you there.
Okay. Along that same line, then let me ask, what if someone does gain weight while they're doing this because they are healing it? Is that, I'm sure it's totally acceptable, but how long do you let that go on before you work with it? I mean, because their expectations are probably different. And
it's an interesting choice of words. It's not that I'm letting anything go on. Bodies heal in different ways.
Okay.
So sometimes people end up gaining some weight because maybe they were suppressing their weight before with different diets. And it's a natural process that their bodies need to go to where they're, genetically DNA programmed. Sometimes people are coming from such severe deprivation that it takes a period of time where they need to eat beyond fullness and need to eat, as much of and as often as they can, the foods that they were depriving themselves of. And some weight gain comes with that. Some people end up losing weight. Some people stay the same. So it's not that I am controlling anybody's letting them or not letting them. It's all a learning experience, and it's going through all the physiological, neurochemical, cognitive, emotional pieces that are come with eating and helping people heal all those parts. So
okay, along that same line, then, is there any difference between the philosophies of intuitive eating and health at every size? Or are you one and the same?
It's not a different philosophy. I incorporate the concepts of health at every size, and that it's mental health we have to look at as well as physical health. And it's how intuitive eating increases so many things in mental health: higher self-esteem, higher psychological hardiness, higher sense of acceptance of the body. So, but not all bodies have to be a particular size to be physically or mentally healthy. So yes, it incorporates it.
Okay. All right. Well, I've heard all these comments over the years where people have asked about this. And so I'm glad that you're explaining it. And could you give us some examples of some case studies where
Sure.
you've applied intuitive eating and you can show people how it works?
So I have some wonderful clients. I love my clients. And one particular woman I was thinking about has been working with me for about 6 months now. And she's a woman in her 60s who is a very successful professional. She was widowed very young. She brought up her 2 children. They're very successful professionals. She had tremendous trauma as a little child, 4 or 5 years old. And I can't go into the details of it, but food was the only solace she had. So throughout her childhood, throughout her teen years, throughout her early years, she was eating as a way to comfort herself. And what I say to people is, thank God you had the food, because it got her through a lot of things. When she got to me, she had been dieting for her entire adult life, even from her teens. And in the very first session, I said to her, how do you feel about having a little more satisfaction in your eating? And she kind of looked at me with this blank look. And I said, do you believe you deserve satisfaction? And she said, I don't think so. I don't know. Now she's in trauma therapy, and it didn't take very long for her to be willing to look through a lens of satisfaction with her eating. And it has changed everything. She is at a point, and it happened fairly quickly, that she is able to choose whatever food she feels like eating without any judgment, to enjoy it, to have satisfaction, and pretty much stop when she's comfortably full. So this is interesting, because this is a person with a huge amount of trauma in her life and is still able to be in touch with herself and her joy of eating. And so now she does believe that she deserves satisfaction. So that's
so fun when you have someone that comes to that awareness and just embraces it and goes with it, and it just turns their life 180 degrees.
I have to tell you, Kathy, that I get DMs on Instagram, I get texts, I get messages, emails about people's lives changing dramatically as a result of intuitive eating. People even say it saved their lives. So that's super great. Do you want me to talk about anybody else, or are we out of time?
Yes. No, please tell us some more.
So I was also thinking about this young man I'm working with who's in his 20s, and he is one of several children in a family where he was the one who pretty much took care of all his siblings' emotional needs growing up. And he's from a family where there's a big emphasis, especially on one side of one of his parents, on thinness and on food. And he has spent his life eating beyond fullness and probably talking about weight before, probably being beyond what his, kind of DNA programming would be.
Mhm.
And in our very first session, he was able to look at also how food was a comfort for him all of his life. But it was a way for his teenage self to rebel against a parent who was pushing him to be thinner. And it was very helpful for us to uncover that. And he is still stuck in diet mentality. He is still having negative thoughts about types of foods, amounts of foods. One of the things that we have worked on is making sure that he takes plenty of food at each of his meals and not take just a small amount that would be a diet amount of food, because what would happen when he would do that is he wouldn't be satisfied, and then he'd go back many times and then feel bad about himself. So I've been helping him just take as much as you want. And he has noticed sometimes that he gets comfortably full and he's had enough. We'll be working together quite a while, and he's already made a lot of progress. One of the psychological pieces that we worked on is that if he were to lose weight, he'd be satisfying this parent. And that is not what he really wants. He wants to be his own person. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into my work.
There is. Anything else? Is there another patient that you think explains?
There is another person, a woman in her 50s who, again, I have a lot of clients who had terrible, terrible trauma and abuse in early childhood. This woman has had bulimia for most of her adult life, and dieting back and forth. And we've gone through many phases of treatment. I've been seeing her for over a year. She has not gone back to any of her bulimic behaviors in the entire year. She has been able to shift from looking at her weight and thinking that it's must to go down to looking at buying herself clothes that she enjoys. Fortunately, she has the privilege of being able to buy some clothes and wear clothes that feel good and enjoy her meals. Just like the first woman I was mentioning, she is finding that if she eats exactly what she wants, she doesn't need as much food as she used to need when she was breaking a diet, so she's doing so well. And this is someone, when the question you asked, how often or how long do I see someone? I have been seeing her for over a year. In the beginning, we saw each other every week, and then it went down to every 2 weeks. And now we see each other once a month, and she's just doing great. So I think those are 3 good examples.
I think so too. I think so. I hope everyone has really enjoyed this. And thank you, Elyse, for being with us today. I hope everyone looks up intuitive eating and they see that there's a certification that you can do. And Helm Publishing offers the first step of that, a 46-hour course that you can take. And then you have counseling, both, or you can choose between groups and individual counseling with the authors of Intuitive Eating. You can be found on intuitiveeating.org and on Instagram at Elyse Resch. That's how you would like for people to contact you?
Well, I also have my own website, which is elyseresch.com. The other one's intuitiveeating.org. People can write me an email if they want to, although I spend a lot of my time responding to emails, but that's elyseresch@gmail. And that's about it. I'm not on other social media platforms. Instagram is the most fun.
Well, this would take you off the streets just answering all of that.
Exactly.
Please stay tuned for more programs through Helm Publishing on question and answers on the intuitive eating concept. We will be interviewing the authors several more times, and there is another interview, the first interview with Elyse, that I'd like for you to look up to, where she answers totally different questions than this. So thank you very much, and we wish you the good health. Thank you.